With a practiced sigh and a swig from his canteen, Dale wiped the sweat from his brow as he carefully navigated the slick, bouldered path moving up the valley. The Colorado sun bore down on him like a curse, its intensity lent by his current altitude. He was in the Rockies, trekking up the side of one glacially carved valley at 8,000 feet above sea level. His quarry was somewhere above, and it was only thanks to his skillful tracker's eye that Dale was able to continue with confidence. It had been 2 years since Dale had dragged the unnaturally light corpse of a 6-foot-tall owl out of the woods of his cabin. Soon after posting pictures of the thing online, Dale had been contacted by a group who called themselves the DAI. They'd started by congratulating him on the kill. Apparently few people lived to see a hide-behind, let alone manage to shoot one. They'd followed up by offering Dale a job in their department, tracking and surveying creatures that were unknown to the general public for one reason or another. This was one such survey, and one of the species that Dale had taken a particular interest in since the Department of Anomalous Investigations had briefed him the year prior. The American SLIDEROCK bolter, or simply Cryptobranchus petrolapsus. It was a mouthful, but Dale found that keeping tabs on this species in particular was an invigorating practice. They were almost impossible to see, but to an experienced tracker like Dale, their signs were like a shouting match in a local Walmart. Bolters were long-lived, eternally growing creatures, and the largest amongst them could devour entire coalitions of hikers. Dale's job was to note the locations of the 3 large adults who called this valley home, and hopefully keep tourists away from these locations with signs that warned of avalanches. If it had been up to him, the whole damn valley and everyone like it would have been made illegal. But some hikers were deemed experienced enough to hike in avalanche territory, so the warnings only served to filter in the most stubborn tourists. In 8 hours, Dale had marked the coordinates of 2 adult bolters, one 20-footer and one that might have touched 25. This was both good and bad news. Good news was that this concluded the easy part. Bad news was that the final bolter in the valley was the oldest and most crotchety amphibian that Dale had ever met. A filthy, bloated queen, twice the length of her largest peer and probably close to 2 tons in weight. He grimaced in anticipation of what would be his 3rd meeting with the beast since the beginning of his time on Bolter Watch. Climbing higher, Dale kept his eyes on the path directly ahead of him. It was an amateur's mistake to try and spot a bolter through its camouflage. Better to keep his eyes open for the telltale trail of lubricating saliva that could easily be mistaken for a tiny creek without a source. In another half hour of walking, Dale came across the exact sign some 30 feet ahead of him. Following the trail uphill with his eyes, Dale imagined he could see the flat, tasseled shape of the bolter staring him down. Pulling out the notebook with the rest of the day's data, Dale palmed a moderately large rock and hurled it into the path, his eyes fixed intently on the rocky hillside above. Nothing happened. Narrowing his eyes, Dale went for another rock. He knew she was there, but he needed visual confirmation to confirm his report. Both of the other adults in the valley had given him a prey response without hesitation, but the queen had never been an easy customer. Second rock, still nothing. She should have been responding to the vibrations, at the very least raising her head. There wasn't enough space above Dale on the valley's crest for the thing to escape his sight, and the trail was right there. Going for a 3rd rock, Dale faced the bottom of the valley and froze. There were spots of color making their way down the valley almost directly below him, moving up the bolter's path. Paling, Dale threw his arms over his head and shouted down to the hikers, warning them of unstable terrain and avalanches. His heart lifted when they noticed him, but his words were stolen by the wind. A few of the hikers waved back as if exchanging a greeting, driving Dale's panic even further down his gut. They couldn't hear him, but something else did. She was so much closer than Dale had anticipated. This he realized as she rose from the rocky trackway and met his gaze with milky eyes. Whether by horrible chance or animal cunning, the overgrown beast had placed herself below Dale's search area. He reached for his sidearm, but the mountain queen had already started to slide, her stubby limbs shoving her bloated form onwards into the slimy trail, down towards the spot where the unaware hikers had resumed their walk, directly through the center of the bolter's hunting path. It is your boy, Editor Caleb, here in the background. Just wanted to let you know what's been going on, why we haven't been publishing. Just kind of in the, right before I post this. It's been kind of difficult getting the editing going. There's been a lot of life going on. And so doing so has been kind of a veritable thorn in our side for the past couple of weeks. And so on that note, we decided that we're not going to be doing like all the crazy editing that we do in the YouTube videos, and instead we're just going to make it the audio, and that way we'll be able to publish normally on all the platforms all at the same time, and thus everything's going to be simple and fantastic and wonderful. And yeah, that's about it. We might bring back the editing at some point if we can find ourselves an editor that will do that for us, but at the moment it's just us. And so on that, back to the video, I guess. I never know how to end these things. Go listen. Welcome to the Snicker Snack Podcast. My name is Caleb. I am joined by my co-host Cal.
Hey.
Hey?
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah, I'm breaking the trend. It is no longer, it is also me. Or, it is me. It's, hey.
What's up? How you doing?
Hey.
Very,
How you doing? It's me, Tony.
It's Tony! This is it. This is how we're gonna do a Snicker Snack from now on. Hey.
We're back at it again.
Yeah, we're back at it.
We're back in it.
So, tonight, whatever time that you're listening to this,
We got a fun one.
we do have a fun one, and it's one that's really unknown. Like, we were looking for it being in anything, and it's not.
Nope.
Not at all.
Not in one single thing.
We are referring to the SLIDEROCK BOLTER.
That's a name.
It is a name. It is 100% a name. This is another one of those wonderful, fantastic, fearsome critters from American...
Just like the hide behind.
Just like the hide behind, right from American folklore. And guess what? It is in the big book of monsters. So I shall take a little bit of an excerpt from that.
All right, read.
Oh boy, I love the book.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Originating in the lumberjack communities of the developing United States of America, the frightful SLIDEROCK bolter of Colorado is counted among the fearsome critters. Living in the areas of the mountains where the land is at least sloped at a 45-degree angle, it was described as having an overly large head, tiny eyes, a sculpin-like mouth reaching back almost to its ears, and a tail which was like twin flippers with hooks at the ends, and which it would use to anchor itself into the rock faces, where it would hang for days waiting for a hiking tourist to pass nearby. When this would finally happen, it would drool down a stream of greasy saliva, release its tail, and like a flesh landslide, skid and at its prey, snatching it up in its mouth as it rocketed by, heading to the next slope. Then, using its tail, it would latch onto something and halt. Like a big half-pipe.
Like a great big half pipe. What a thing. What a beast.
What a lad, even.
He's a strange one, and I really like him.
Now, just like the hide behind, this comes from loggers, lumberjack tales, right? Something that, you would say around the campfire to dissuade people or teach lessons or just to spook the new guys.
It's a cautionary tale to scare the greenhorns because, I don't know, maybe they were a little bit silly and they didn't want the newbies to know what they were getting into.
Well, I mean, so really... It's kind of, I mean, I say it's so obvious, but it's basically, I say, personifying
a rock slide.
A landslide. Yeah, so that's essentially it. That's what it is.
It's encouraging people to look up on slopes, look for unstable boulders, make sure they're not going to have their bones turn into a liquid instead of a solid.
Yeah, I hate it when my bones are liquid. It's like that,
Flaccid bones.
I don't like the flaccid bones. Reminds me of that,
I replaced your DNA with fruit by the foot.
I was just about to say.
Same wavelength, people.
That makes me so uncomfortable.
It's a fun one.
Oh boy.
Editor Caleb's gonna have fun with that.
Alright. So, history-wise, lumberjacks, Americana, all that stuff. Reason behind it, kind of just, don't get into landslides.
It's a cautionary tale.
Yeah, cautionary tale. I mean, it's really not anywhere. And I went looking. I mean, if you can find something, right, put it in a comment or something. Let us know that, hey, Caleb, you're an idiot and you totally forgot about this really obvious thing. But I couldn't find it in any
no movies, no shows.
Yeah.
It's in a few books, but they're all cryptid compendiums about fearsome critters.
Right.
So they don't... They don't really count.
It's kind of unknown, and that's a shame because it's so much fun.
It's a fun one. All of the Fearsome Critters are, but this, I think, along with the Hide Behind, and I think 2 more that we're going to do are... They're the big names. They're the real fun ones.
Oh, are you ready to do the Squonk?
Ooh, okay, 3 more. 3 more.
My personal favorite, the Squonk.
He's a good boy.
He's a sad boy. But we'll get into that at a later date.
Another
Tonight,
time.
today, tomorrow is the SLIDEROCK BOLTER. So, I think we're just going to get straight into the speculative biology.
We have said all we can.
There's really not a whole lot to go off of aside from... Well, there is a story about... who is his name? I'm so bad with names. A guy that baited one, right? And this will kind of go into hunting.
You're talking about what they have written down in the Book of Creatures, which we maybe should just have that pulled up as a default. Because
I think I had it right here. Let's see.
A well-versed individual in a fictional individual who knows his stuff when it comes to the Fearsome Critters was setting up decoys that look like tourists because they are the Bolter's favored prey, and he put a bomb in one, and it popped.
Yeah, and I think it also blew up like half the towns.
Oh,
or half the town, half the buildings in the town. So, yeah, that was the best thing that they found, and I love that it says that its main food source are tourists
because they don't know.
They don't know. They have
up.
no idea what's going on because tourists. Alas, however, furthermore, aside from that, that's
in addition to
that's basically it.
Simple in the lore department.
Simple.
And coming up, we're gonna have some that are a lot more complex in the lore department, specifically our next episode.
What's our next episode?
I mean, can I say it or should I wait?
I might as well say it.
Next episode, ladies and gentlemen, we're doing another fan favorite. We're doing another one of the big names, which we've been rationing them. Don't kill all the hype right away. But El Chupacabra.
Oh, right. I forgot about that.
Sucker of goats.
I love... No.
Nope, don't.
Not saying that.
Goat milk is nice.
Goat milk is great.
It goes well on apple pie.
It's true.
Mm-hmm.
It also makes good cheese for elote.
Yeah.
Good stuff. All right. So, speculative biology. We had a couple ideas as to where we would go with this.
I've come up with one since we started talking.
Oh, yeah?
Our species doesn't change, but I've got something fun.
Okay, so...
Just based on the little reading that you did.
When we were thinking, we originally thought, well, maybe it's a giant slug.
Yeah.
And that was a thing, but that also kind of, in the same vein, kind of like ruins the original tales of how it looks, its mouth, and how everything works.
I thought about that one in hindsight a lot too, and it's hard to get a slug really big.
Yeah.
Because...
No lungs,
no bones. He's not going to be able to have any kind of form. He's just a gelatinous pancake sliding at you.
It's a lot more like, a dungeon slime versus anything else.
Yeah. And so, we need something a little bit more bony. I think a landfish might be out of the question. I do have one fun aside, but that I'll save for after we've dove into our decision.
Our main boy. Yeah, so...
I don't think it can be a mammal, because mammals typically aren't all that slimy.
No, not typically. But we did decide on kind of a salamander.
A great big salamander.
Yeah, really big. Now, of course, it's big, and so it might be... Sizes! Animals that get into a really large size... tend to have a harder time because weight, right? So the idea that this thing is so massive, right? There's a concept, and I'm sure people that would watch a podcast like ours would probably know about it.
Square cube.
The square cube law.
Square cube law.
Right? And I love the square cube law because it makes Cal upset.
It's kind of a wrench in the works for a few of my things. I counteract it by this planet has lower gravity and a denser atmosphere, and all of what I can, but at the end of the day, physics are really out to get me.
Truly.
Unfortunately.
When your whole shtick is kaijus, you're kind of boned.
If Godzilla can do it, why can't I?
It's the thing he cannot.
No,
Neither
he
can the big monkey. But, so, essentially, I think I might just look up the definition of square cube law so I don't just get it off.
Well, as something's weight doubles, its weight quadruples. That's it. So, if you were going to multiply something by 2, you multiply it by
3.
You multiply the result by 2. If you have an exponent, that exponent
right. 2
switches
times
from a 2 to a 3. You're cubing instead of squaring.
Right. So the bigger something is, the heavier it gets by a exponent of 3.
The name is very, very self-explanatory.
Yeah.
If you square the length, you cube the weight.
So what that means is that, the bigger something is, the more weight and gravity has effect on it. Well,
the gist is that weight increases much more rapidly than length.
Right.
Or height, for that matter.
So that means that it has to deal with the fact that it is so massive, right? Which means that you have to change a few things about the physiology, right? Mm-hmm. To basically have it be able to live.
Now, I have some handy-dandy little fix-it... What am I trying to say? I have a solution.
You have loopholes.
This is a problem. I have a solution.
I mean, if anyone's going to have solutions on how to get past... the square cube law, it's gonna be you.
It's me. And my solution here, in this case, is we don't necessarily need to break the square cube law. Now, I'm going to say this a lot over the course of this show. Look at dinosaurs.
Right.
Now, dinosaur weight is something that's always kind of subject to change because there are no ancient dinosaurs to weigh.
I like the chunkier the better.
The chunkier the better. Now, 10 tons for a T-Rex is the current recognized consensus. And I would imagine that a sauropod gets a lot bigger than that. They did have the advantage of being on the bird-like side of things, so they have a system of air sacs that kind of helps with the weight situation.
Are you telling me that sauropods are basically hot air balloons?
Not to that extent, but it certainly wouldn't hurt.
I know there was I say a theory, but kind of a thought about, since elephants have padded feet, that sauropods would be kind of similar in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, their feet aren't built quite the same, but there is definitely room for speculation there.
Right.
Yeah. And so, our salamander, I'll touch on my first point. My second point is, look at dinosaurs, they grew to maybe 30 or 40 tons for the bigger ones, maybe even bigger than that for your real... I forget the name of that new sauropod they discovered, but it started with bra. Yeah. And then
the Brasaurus.
Yeah, we also got Parusetus last year, the very chonky, potentially larger than a blue whale cetacean.
That's fun.
Really fun. He looks like a friend too.
So what I was thinking, and now you're about to go into a point.
My point.
But hold on to that point for half a second.
It's being held on to.
Right, lock it in. My idea is that, because one of the main thoughts that was having limbs that it can support its weight on.
Right.
I think that it doesn't necessarily need to be able to support its own weight on its limbs. Because, the design of it is that it slides everywhere.
Oh yeah, no. Our bolter doesn't necessarily need to be able to walk at all.
It doesn't need
to be able to hold itself up. It doesn't, in crocodile terminology, it can't high walk.
Yeah, it does
a shuffle.
It's like a fat wiener dog,
but
right? It just kind of pulls itself across the ground.
When animals are large enough, like a beached whale, they crush themselves under their own weight. That's what we're trying to negate with square cube law here.
Right, yeah.
So my solution is that we make it a little bit smaller. Because an animal only gets as need as it bigs to be. That's what I was about to say. Only as big as it needs to be. And I mean, this is something that gets said a lot in crocodile circles. It doesn't make a difference if you get grabbed by a 12-foot croc or a 22-foot croc or a 32-foot croc, or a 42. Anything above the 12-footer mark, if it gets a good hold on you, you are going in the water anyway, and it wouldn't make a difference if it were twice the size, because it's a crocodile.
But that only applies to humans. What if something like an elephant steps into the water and it's a 42-foot croc?
I mean, that elephant's gonzo.
Yeah.
Same for a 32.
Well, yeah. So it depends on what the prey is. Now,
Fair
of
enough.
course, in our situation, it says that its prey is tourists.
We disregard
but that's just,
This thing is going to be camping out on mountain passes, waiting for
deer, bears,
literally
anything that it can get its hands on. Now,
no hands, mouth.
Yeah.
All mouth.
now
I'm picturing a very large terrestrial salamander in the same vein as a tiger salamander, but with much more emphasis on the jaws and head, and, like you said, Caleb, the reduced limbs, because realistically, it's only going to use them if it has to shuffle.
it needs to be able to pull itself up hills.
That's true.
Right? Which means that its legs should be kind of like anchors in how they're designed. So
Maybe some hooked claws.
hooked claws, something that it can latch onto a cliff face, or not cliff face, but like a hill face and pull itself up to a point where it can slide back down.
Yep.
Now,
You want to know something fun?
yes,
Amphibians don't have keratin on their outside.
right,
They don't have scales, they don't have claws. However, there's something called the wolverine frog.
Right,
the hairy
right.
frog, who contracts its skin over its fingers, breaks its bones, and juts them out through the broken skin.
it's an idea.
Bone claws.
Bone claws.
Bone claws.
That just kind of pull itself up.
They just kind of pop out.
That's metal.
It
as
is.
hell.
Yeah.
We made the SLIDEROCK bolter scarier.
Frogs get kind of wild. I won't lie.
No.
I'm imagining an animal that's probably between, I'd say an average adult, maybe 20 feet long, big crocodile size, but given time, because again, a lot of animals that aren't mammals are indeterminate growers.
Right.
We could look at a 30, 35, maybe 40-foot bolter, which is getting into humpback whale territory, which does match the description.
Yeah, because what we're really thinking about is like a whale-sized creature.
Yeah.
Man, this is so much easier to do when we're not doing something that's human adjacent. I swear.
The mermaids, will regret that episode forever. It's not as bad as our petrification, but it took us so long to reach that chimp conclusion. And I really like it. And I listened to that episode the other day, and I'm saying, Cal, why a bird? Cal, stop.
I think you're still hung up on the siren idea.
I may have been.
Yeah.
We're not talking about that. We're on Bolter. Bolter grind set.
Well, so idea of it being a really large salamander,
Yeah.
right? But it also has to be whale sized, and so
Not necessarily. I'm saying
I'm talking
might-
like at the very top scale,
right.
whale sized. Now I'm thinking that a creature at that size isn't going to be able to mate, I suppose. Right, like because it would have to go like. How are these creatures going to mate unless they were like?
Well, amphibians, Caleb.
That's what I was.
They breed in water. Well, land-based salamanders are known to dig a burrow, a very, very moist burrow, and lay their eggs there. I know that tiger salamanders do that. And for a frame of reference, this number isn't totally out of the question. There is an ancient amphibian called Prionosuchus. I know it's named after. It's got a crocodilian name, but it is an amphibian. External gills. 30 to 35 feet long. That's bigger than most crocodiles ever.
So what I'm thinking, right?
Yep.
Another idea that I was having.
Or maybe it was 20 feet. I might be.
You
cook.
What are the in terms of amphibians, right? What if they were sometimes hermaphroditic?
Absolutely.
Which
I think some of them are. I don't know one off the top of my head, but think about Jurassic Park. The turning point of that movie is that they realized frog DNA. Some African frogs can reproduce with themselves, which is definitely something that a lot of animals do. Can't give you a species name, because frogs aren't super my thing, but I have an approximate knowledge of many things.
I feel that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another idea. Now, of course, having a species that basically copies itself in that hermaphroditic way does lead to problems with a species because
genetic stagnation.
Genetic stagnation can lead to disease, not necessarily like something animal or something a creature made out of like incestual is not the same. It's more of a case of if one
the mother
gets
produces genetic clones of herself.
Right. So if that one gets sick with something, every single one of them that is that genetic clone are going to, right, if it dies from that, all the other ones are likely to die from that. They don't have that same kind of...
and they won't evolve immunity because they're all genetic clones.
Right.
In few words, if the mother is susceptible, her clones will be susceptible, their clone children will be susceptible. Species gets in trouble.
Right. So I'd say that it would be possible for it to basically self-clone. I don't know what's the terminology for this.
Produce hermaphroditically. That's a
that's a mouthful.
Make clones.
Make itself.
Do cloning.
Do the clone, but not necessarily that it's its first main to. And maybe younger ones that are able to move more, or better because they're not as bound down by their weight.
Yeah, they're a lot smaller. They
Can
walk, run.
They could. Those ones tend to be the ones that end up actually mating. But the big ones, the real big ones, they can't really get to those areas anymore.
Yeah.
And so they just start...
or maybe it's like a yearly migration where you just see a 50-foot long, a 17-meter, the biggest bolter on the block just sliding down this mountain pass into a lake.
Right.
And then they have what's it called? What do anacondas do? A mating ball.
Oh, jeez.
A giant twisted knot of every big snake in an area.
I can't say the word.
Don't do it. Don't say that word.
2-syllable, 4 letters.
Yep.
Snake.
No.
Rhymes with...
Come on.
Porgy.
A corgi.
Rhymes with corgi. Kind of.
Right. Get out of there. Get out of that headspace.
Snake corgi. All right. One thing I was thinking, right, is that so it's said in lore, and it's in its lore that it will slide. The half pipe situation, right, where it'll go from one hill into another. Now that implies the idea that it lives within valleys, right? Valleys, they tend to be kind of wet.
Yeah.
I mean, we live in a valley, and it's wet as hell.
Yeah, and mucus. And that, I think, is maybe my favorite thing. That's the extra idea that I thought of. Because imagine if a bolter's drool, constant little greasy drool that he uses to lube up its slip and slide, so to speak. What if it was adhesive when dry? Like, say a bear.
Wouldn't that mess with it if it...
I don't think so, because its skin is constantly moist.
Right.
So it's going to camp out on an incline. I don't like the 45 degree, because it's really steep for a big animal. And even if it's sliding downhill, I'm not sure if I like the Rocky Valley image either, because I think grass would be easiest to slide over.
Well, I just imagine a lot of trees being in the way.
Yeah.
But it's probably a lot shorter of a distance than what is portrayed.
Right? I mean, this isn't, I don't think, the final number that I've got in my head, but if we look at a humpback whale, if we've got a 50-ton salamander, it'll go through a tree.
That's fair, but will it be able to go through a tree without severely damaging itself?
That's where our issue lies.
Right, because imagine...
Yeah, I got to finish my thought. Camps out over a valley where the middle of the valley is very sunlit, and maybe the rest is not. Maybe they hunt at a specific time of day, so that bottom of their mucus trail is a little bit sticky. And then an animal walks, gets caught in it. Oh, wait, maybe it does a spider thing. It can feel vibrations.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that.
Through its lower jaw, through its little mucousy webs, and then that's what triggers it, and it slides on down.
That could be fun.
Because salamanders aren't known for their vision.
Right. Right. Now, are salamanders, they don't have a self-regulating temperature, do they?
What do you mean by that?
Like, unlike reptiles, they're not, are they cold-blooded?
They are cold-blooded.
Okay, they are cold-blooded.
Yeah. If it is not a mammal or a bird, it is
That's
cold-blooded.
fair. Yeah, I should have known that. But, so, I mean, what I'm thinking is, like, it being up on a rocky outcrop or something like that might be beneficial to it.
Basking.
Basking?
The issue then becomes...
Drying out?
It is a salamander, so
Yeah.
it could dry out.
Well, that's my idea about it being in a valley.
Maybe
right?
its skin's a little bit more leathery on top.
Right. Doesn't breathe through its butt. Like, well, that's a turtle.
Well, amphibians do that
they
to an
breathe through
extent.
their skin, right?
To an extent, but they skin breathe, yeah.
Yeah. But being in a valley, a very wet valley, right? Probably being near sources of water.
Moisture. Waterfalls.
Imagine
Imagine one that...
falling off a waterfall.
That, hides underneath the waterfall and then slides out, instead of half pipe through the valley, it slides long ways from the top to the bottom down like a little rocky stream. Comes out from behind the waterfall.
Surprise!
I imagine that this wouldn't be the bulk of their species, because being a large ambush predator, yeah, you evolve to essentially slide down a hill at things because you're too slow, but they're still a salamander.
Right.
Maybe they're too dense to swim, but they could still lay in shallow water and grab
maybe they don't.
a medium-sized elk if it came to drink.
Maybe they're bottom walkers.
Yeah, that's what
And
I'm thinking.
They breathe. Well, they wouldn't breathe. These ones probably wouldn't breathe through their skin, but the ability to breathe underwater would probably be.
Gills are questionable for especially a salamander that doesn't want to dry out. I don't think we can do gills.
That's fair.
But even if it's a bottom walker, it's 40 feet long. So shallow water, raise up to the surface, not a big issue.
That's fair. Now, what I'm thinking, right, is that because it doesn't move a whole lot, right, it's kind of in that, like, almost sloth or, a snake that's had a big meal. They can just sit there for a long time.
Yeah, they are waiters.
Yeah, the most energy that they're exerting is climbing back up the hill, right? So, which means that I imagine that I could wait in ambush for days.
Some crocodiles, specifically Nile crocodiles, of course, the big zebra wildebeest crossing events where crocodiles just go to town.
Right.
And they eat so much.
Yeah.
Some of them do not eat until the next major crossing.
Holy smokes.
Which is a year.
Okay, so these things could,
A year? 2 years? It depends on how much they slow that metabolism down.
Right. Maybe they could fall in... Well, what about winter? Because...
There are amphibians that freeze solid in winter and then thaw and are alive.
I know frogs do
I
that.
will hold on.
But is this thing too big to do that?
No, not necessarily.
Because this is supposed to be some...
All of the mechanics are still there.
This does have to be in... The idea is Colorado. So there's plenty of snow in Colorado.
Yeah. The snow makes them more dangerous.
Yeah. The avalanche. Well, maybe if they're not frozen solid.
Maybe they become more aggressive in winter because snakes generate heat when they digest things. And the same applies to other reptiles. So maybe instead of prioritizing one big meal, they go into like feeding overdrive.
Right.
And because the snow would aid that.
Right.
And so they slide down icy slopes. They become much more of a problem in winter. Which, if we wanted to...
Well, that's without them. That's the idea if they don't freeze.
Assuming they do not freeze, but this is to avoid freezing. They will live if they freeze.
Right.
Because they're amphibians and they can just do that. However, the drive to not freeze, the instinctual, hey, I'm maybe not that cool with freezing solid, drives them to hyperpredate, become temporarily a hyperpredator, hypervore, if that's what the term is, like a skull crawler. And they just keep going. And they just eat and eat and eat some more.
So, I was just looking up certain types of like prey that could exist within Colorado.
Right.
I was looking at moose.
Yeah. It'd be a lot of moose, a lot of deer.
Well, except from what I'm reading is that moose aren't before what was it, 1970s. They weren't really a big thing in there. I don't know if that's because they were hunted to a point or if they were just brought in there. But these people are talking about transplants, so I'm imagining that it originally had moose. Because why would you transplant an animal that doesn't exist?
Hunting.
Yeah?
Hunting for sport. That's probably the reason why.
Artificially introduced as recently as 1978 by Colorado. Yeah.
However, I'm sure that there were still deer.
Maybe that's the reason why there weren't so many moose in Colorado. It's because of SLIDEROCK bolters.
Could also do that, yeah. But yeah, I mean...
But elk exist, I believe, in Colorado, which are superior to deer in every way.
I mean, an elk is just a bigger deer.
It tastes better, too. And, I mean, elk are like 600 pounds.
If not more.
Like a bull elk.
I think they can be heavier than that.
Oh, yeah,
I think they might be 800 pounds.
Average.
Because I know
weighs
a full-grown bull moose can be somewhere in the ballpark.
Of about over 1,000.
Yeah. I think 1,300 pounds.
Yeah. Because, I mean, elk, that would be... Because, like, if we're going to have a massive predator, we need a massive prey.
And remember, that applies for a really big mammal. But this is cold-blooded.
Right.
This has got a really slow metabolism. So one good meal or 3 good meals... all it needs.
Right.
And it just needs that one deer or that one decently sized deer, one elk to cross its path.
Because, I mean, if an 1,100-pound elk comes strolling down and, a SLIDEROCK bolter grabs it, I think it's going to be good for a good long time.
Yeah.
Right?
And I don't think this is a question of if it can predate things, because you have a very heavy sliding force driving down a cliff at something.
Right. What if it had a...
It's like getting hit by a semi-truck.
Well, what if it had, like, a hardened skull?
Maybe. I'm just picturing it ram feeding.
Yeah. Well, so do you think that the SLIDEROCK bolter would be more of a... almost like a gulper?
Oh, yeah, no. I mean, salamanders are not known for their teeth.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Some do have them, but... I don't think tiger salamanders do. I would have to double check that.
I imagine.
But no, anything that doesn't die on impact. Because again, teeth or no teeth, keratin nose or no keratin nose, when it hits things, they're getting hit by maybe 20 tons of force going 60, 40 miles per hour.
Right.
They're not going to survive. If they do, they either get squished by its bite force, which isn't impressive in salamanders, but this thing is massive.
Yeah, it makes up
or
for
just
it.
swallowed whole and asphyxiate.
Which is, like always, it comes back to vor.
Comes back to vor.
It's always vor.
It's nature's favorite.
Nature just loves its vor, and I hate it.
It's the worst. Yeah. Boy, oh boy.
Let's see, where were we going with that?
The train of thought has left the station. Methods of feeding. Here's another thing. Salmon runs.
It just opens its mouth up and just waits for it to jump
scarce, go and net feed in a salmon run.
No.
The bears look over like, oh, here's Jerry again. He's going to eat way too much.
So the waterfalls where the salmon jump up from, right?
Yeah.
To go and to do their,
A bolter jumps up and grabs a bear.
Oh, well, maybe. I feel like a grizzly bear could take a bolter.
Oh, my brother. It depends on how big we make it. But I feel like a bolter that's in a lake or a bolter that's got its full slide going that's going to run into a bear.
Yeah.
I mean, how heavy is a grizzly bear? 1,800 pounds? Maybe?
Yeah.
Oh, I might be wrong. No, I might be dead wrong there.
Generally weigh between, weigh upwards of 700.
Okay.
700 pounds.
I think bolter weighs more than a ton.
Males reach their maximum weight of 330 to 1,100 pounds in 12 years.
So, half ton.
Yeah. So same weight as, like, the big elks.
Right. A saltwater crocodile, I believe, can weigh upwards of 1 ton. That's a salty. Salties are big boys. They're not as dense as a Nile because they have less armor.
Right.
But I'm thinking about something that can get maybe 50% larger than a saltwater crocodile.
The problem is that a saltwater crocodile exists in water. It has that benefit of being mostly a water creature.
Yeah.
Now,
And when they get really big, they do not like to leave water because they have itty bitty little legs.
exactly. So what I'm thinking is like that doesn't benefit the SLIDEROCK bolter in that regard. And also, we're talking about something that has a substantially larger head than a saltwater crocodile.
I don't know about that one. Proportionally,
Width-wise,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's built like a grouper.
Yeah.
So like that head.
Ooh. Okay, well here's an idea, and this is not my backdoor other speculation, but this is a third one. What about an alligator? I don't think it's not slimy, so it doesn't really work.
Slimy.
But he's got the wide face.
It's a reptile.
All right. While we're here, I'm going to do my spiel, my alternate option.
Okay,
which
shoot.
I definitely don't like as much as the salamander. I think that's our official. We're sticking with it.
Right.
But rhizodonts or rhizodonts are an ancient order of fish.
Okay.
Rhizodus, the biggest one, grew to be 25 feet long, probably 2.5 tons, 2 to 2.5 tons, and there is fossil evidence to indicate that they were one of the first fish to leave water, not because they were trying to prey on things on land, but because they would sit at the top of embankments and slide down into bodies of water to ambush prey.
Wait.
Tell me that isn't perfect.
That's just a slide. Wait. Why is this the? Because that just sounds like a SLIDEROCK bolter.
Yeah. It's a really ancient fish with big old teeth, rhizodonts. It doesn't work for a few reasons. One of which is that we know that order of fish went extinct way back because they're lobe-finned fish, and the only remainder of that haven't evolved into tetrapods are the coelacanth, our favorite little fishy boy.
I was about to bring it up, but yeah.
Shoot. We could, of course, our alternate history includes marine chimpanzees.
I was about to say.
So it's
like
doable.
I don't feel like a species going extinct really stops us from talking about how that might be how it works.
It definitely won't come Jurassic June.
Yeah.
Because we're doing something special for June.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be real quiet the entire time, and Cal is just gonna talk about dinosaurs for an hour.
I get to talk about dinosaurs. It's all right. They're not all gonna be dinosaurs, but we're gonna be
doubt you, but
something fun.
So fish, but the cool thing is that we could take some of those attributes and attach them to our salamander.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I think what that gives us, the main thing I'm taking from it, is the weight threshold.
Right. That's what I was thinking.
Something that can pull itself up a slope and then slide down a slope.
Right. And it's a fish, so it's already kind of not great at walking.
Yeah.
Right. So in this regard, that pretty much
2 to 2.5 tons.
Yeah.
I think that's our number.
That pretty much proves, unless this is a bunch of farce and
it's a
theory.
Little bit of speculation, but I think there are trackways, and I think there is substantiated evidence.
It makes it a much more plausible theory that a creature like this could exist within a nature sphere.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that it would be that heavy because I don't think it needs to be that heavy.
It just could be. The
could
option is open for a very rare. A Gustav type individual,
the ancient one
that grows that large.
Yeah, which could be the ones that, like the one that you hear in the story, about it being blown up with dynamite or whatnot.
Or compared to a whale, which, let's face it, humans are full of hyperbole.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and that's one of our best traits.
Yeah, I feel like I said this before, but their whole species probably doesn't even slope feed in this manner. I'm sure that a lot of them are at least semi-aquatic in their behavior.
Maybe it's a trait they take up once they hit a certain age.
Yeah.
Right, because they get large, and maybe they get large quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But they get large quickly, and then like the biosphere of the lake that they're in or whatnot can no longer support them, and they have to
You know what it is? I bet that they, once they hit that point that you're talking about, they begin by hiding in the scrub behind a riverbank and then sliding down the riverbank or lake bed to catch the thing that's drinking and then push it into the water.
Much like that fish.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, so
reverse crocodile maneuver.
It just gets to a point where it's so large that it doesn't really need to go into a lake. And maybe it still does slide into the lake.
Yeah, because for those small ones, I'm picturing like a 10-footer.
Well, I'm talking about the big ones probably still slide into the lake. It's just that they're hunting land animals now. Right, because...
Oh, no, that's... Sorry, you misunderstood. I'm talking there's a deer drinking at the lake.
No, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And it drives it into the lake.
Gotcha.
From some vegetation or some cover.
Right, somewhere a little higher up.
Yeah. And then the bigger they get, the more oomph they need to get going.
Right.
And their instincts keep driving them to climb a little bit higher until they're living in these damp, kind of more hilly regions. Maybe not mountainous because, again... Boulders and salamander skin, not really friends.
Yeah, that's a big, but glacier.
Glacier, yeah. Well,
maybe.
I don't know. They just slide into a crevasse and get stuck.
No, not that type of glacier, but like
a glacial lake.
Glacial like on the side of a mountain where it's just frozen, right? Because it's always frozen, even in the summer. It's just snow, right? Or it's just ice, right? I climbed a mountain, Mount Thielsen, and it was like the middle of July, and there was ice on one side of the mountain, and that's normal for a lot of mountains, right? There's snow at the or ice
because they're all high up.
Yeah, high up, high elevation. But that side of that mountain is completely smooth, right? So
I'm not going fast.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it's climbing up mountains. I'm just saying that it would be possible, and
especially if they got little ice picks.
Yeah,
on their little hands.
Yeah, their big bone claws.
Now, something we haven't talked about is the tail, because it's frequently described as having grappling hooks.
Right, bill hooks.
So, I don't think that's impossible to do.
Right.
I don't think we can elongate the body and shrink the tail. Because now we don't have a salamander, we have a long frog.
Now, so a big thing about the tail, right, is that it's depicted almost like a whale tail.
Yeah.
Right, which is, I mean, if you see a salamander, it's not whale shaped. It's fish shaped. You know what I mean? It's side to side, not up and down.
Side to side, lateral, right? Not vertical.
So it would have to evolve to a point where, one, it splits off in kind of that dugong shape, right?
I don't think we do that at all.
No?
Well, because I'm picturing it being described as a whale.
Right.
People don't fully understand it. And they're hard to observe because I imagine they're well camouflaged.
Oh, yeah.
Amphibians can change the color of their skin. Better than chameleons. Chameleons get all the hype for it, but they change based on emotion, not camouflage. Frogs camouflage, people. So imagine trying to find a bolter and you don't find it. And so as you're walking back through the bottom of a basin, you hear a rumble behind you, and that's not good. And then no one heard from that guy who went out to go and catalog bolters because they're hard to find.
And the old man that's like, oh, it was a SLIDEROCK bolter got him.
Yeah.
Hey, you slip sliding down this way, and look at all this slime down here. Hey, you hear that?
I imagine that the whale image could definitely persist into the modern day.
Right. Because, while not necessarily being whale shaped, just big.
Yeah, just large, and the last thing that people see is a mouth.
So what are you thinking about how the tail would work as an anchor?
I don't know that it needs to be an anchor. I think it's definitely possible for them to coil it around something like a boulder. Some technically arboreal salamanders have a prehensile tail. Tiger salamanders don't, but they could if they needed it.
Interesting.
And evolution's all about that need.
It's true.
Yeah.
I was thinking some sort of like python or something, like instead of bone. Well, they have bone claws, but also like the end of its tail is also... Nah, that wouldn't really work.
Well, here's something. We're changing... I'm changing biological families again. But if you look at... I think it's triggerfish. Triggerfish and tangs have, at the base of their tail, just before the beginning of the caudal fin, they have two hooked barbs that face forward in relation to where the fish is swimming. And they can pop them out at will. And so when they are trying to defend themselves, they'll come up alongside something and then they'll tail shank it.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. So I imagine maybe in a similar vein, retractable bony protrusion on the base of the tail.
Right.
Could certainly accomplish something similar. So yeah, not out of the question at all.
So we have a couple different options for how the tail works.
Yeah.
And they both seem like decent options.
Coil around something, have bone spurs that come out the sides of it, so when it coils into something, it's got traction.
Oh, yeah. What if it had almost like frills that worked as anchors that just kind of locked in place?
Which in the younger ones are swimming fins.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they just kind of fold back when they're not, and then they slide down.
They start sliding.
That could be fun. So one thing I was thinking of, right, is the mucus, right? Yeah. It's got to release an obscene amount of mucus.
Or it doesn't release any at all, and you just see the trail after one went down.
Well, wouldn't that imply that it was releasing mucus if it went down the trail?
I mean, there's always a little bit of dampness on their underside, but they don't necessarily drool a constant tirade of a constant... What am I trying to say? Down.
I don't know. I kind of
Maybe they might.
I think... So, they've got a big mouth.
I don't like my adhesive idea. I think I double back on that.
What if it... Like a gross 7-year-old child filling up their mouth with as much spit as they possibly can, right? Their mouth, and they got a big mouth.
They
right? Do. And they fill their entire mouth with mucus or saliva or something along those lines, because it's said to be to come from their mouth, right? Yeah.
From the corners of their mouth.
So maybe they have glands
boy,
or something like that?
I just got another one.
Okay.
I got one. So, at the base of the head, right behind the jaw muscles, a lot of amphibians have their poison glands. You see them on a cane toad. You see them on not a tiger salamander, but their relative, the fire salamander. Looks the same, is much more toxic.
Fun.
Those could definitely either migrate downward or be interpreted as the quote-unquote corners of the mouth.
So are you implying that it's venomous?
Poisonous lubricant that he slides down on. Maybe it adds saliva, and that kind of primes it, makes it more slippery.
It's become less, toxic and more just kind of more of a lubricant.
Yeah, a repurposed venom gland that's just slippery.
Yeah, but basically it fills its mouth up with it, and it just waits. And it sits there with it in its mouth, and then when it sees something, it just kind of bleh, and then slides down.
Could also probably get it out a good ways because some salamanders have a projectile tongue, same way as a frog.
Oh God,
yeah,
that'd be horrifying. Mm-hmm. You imagine your waterfall idea, but it's just a big tongue that comes
through the waterfall,
grabs a dude.
I'm getting into some real Snake 3 territory.
Yeah.
The frogs that snipe you from 2 miles away,
unbelievable,
and also look like Onis.
That movie was a fever trip.
It's one of the movies of all time.
It certainly was.
Yep.
Well, on that note,
I'm pretty happy with this.
Yeah. Let's talk about dealing with them, hunting them. Now, I do like Mr. Forest Ranger's idea of bait it with, the classic Tannerite dog.
Yeah.
But
the old tried and true Tannerite dog.
Works on SLIDEROCK bolters. Works on unwanted visitors. Yeah, it works great.
Please do not the dog.
So that's a method. Yeah, obviously.
That's an expensive one.
That's a very expensive one. Well, Tannerite is not terribly expensive.
Still,
it's a binary explosive.
It's messy. It's like when they blew up the
whale in Oregon
on the Oregon coast.
Yeah, but it's just you only took out half a town. It's fine.
The cars with 500 pound chunks of blood are crushing them.
It's beautiful.
What a smell, too.
God, could you imagine the smell?
What a solution to a problem.
Blow it up.
Yeah.
It's a very American solution.
More than that, this thing is not a mover.
No.
It's not great. Once it's finished sliding, the most it's going to do is whip around, maybe try to get at you, but I feel like it's got less land mobility than a crocodile, especially a big one.
I feel like it moves kind of similar to a seal.
No.
No?
No.
You don't think so? You think it's more like a slide?
Well, wait, what are you saying? Are you saying like an elephant seal?
Yeah, one of the big seals where they kind of flop.
No.
No?
I can't see it perambulating. I think it's too heavy to perambulate, which that's the word for the like bouncy seal move.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I picture them moving like a big crocodile on land, which is
they just kind of
very
slide
slowly,
across.
very carefully,
That's
just
fair.
one leg at a time, kind of pulling themselves along. Definitely can't raise the head. Probably can't move laterally too fast, although probably similarly to a crocodile, their spine does bend laterally, so they might be able to whip around.
Right.
But bait one, run out of the way. When it reaches the bottom and it has to go and climb back and reset, go chop at it.
Do you think it has like a good sense of smell?
Probably not. Salamanders aren't known for that.
What?
Hearing.
Hearing?
Oh,
I mean that works. I suppose.
Because it's feeling vibrations through its
Hear me
underside.
out. Okay, you take an elk decoy and you put a Bluetooth speaker in it that makes elk noises. Because you know who's loud? Tourists.
Yeah.
Tourists are loud. So
And not careful and
not
bad at
careful.
looking where they're going.
exactly,
Easy bolter meal.
which is why they are easy bolter meals
Mhm.
in the stories. But so the first thing, the number one thing that is going to benefit you in hunting a slide rock bolter is knowing thy enemy, right? You know you're in slide rock bolter territory. You can see, oh look, there's a dried up calcified slime trail, and you're like, well, I know where that's from. And you just kind of look up.
Eyeball it up. You see a conspicuous kind of oblong boulder. Say, that's our boy.
That's it.
That's our boy.
And then you just kind of walk up next to it.
Yeah. And
you put a saddle on it,
I
and
think-
you ride it down the hill.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's go!
God, transportation for
I
those-
want to ride the slide rock bolter. I want the cowboy hat and the one hand. Oh, that's what I want. Giddy up.
That's a fun time.
That's 100%
Yeah.
American.
I feel like if you're 10 feet to the left or right, you're completely safe.
Yeah.
Maybe not 10. Maybe
Maybe
give
a
it a
little longer.
respectful 30. Because
Just-
I imagine it could whip to the side a little bit. Try to
Maybe.
get you with the tongue.
It could probably steer like a
Yeah.
sled a
Yeah.
little bit, but
But
probably,
the closer you are to the top of the mountain, the less likely it'll be.
you want to come down on it.
Yeah.
You don't want to go up to it because
That's its happy place.
you're gonna die.
Yeah.
And it's literally just waiting for a good noise to go off. Like, oh, that's an animal, and then you're dead. You are vored, which is the worst possible fate I can imagine.
What if after they've eaten a big meal, they slide further down the valley and go to like hibernate in the lake while they digest?
Oh yeah, I can see that.
Because then
Once-
after they've eaten something, they're heavier.
Right.
So it's probably harder work to crawl back all the way to the top and reset.
True. So they wait, they let it digest, and once they have all that energy from digesting, they climb back up and then wait, and then they can sit there for a good long time until something gets in the way.
Gets in their fat stores.
I like that. Let's see other methods. I got one. Real big stick, and by stick I mean
Spear?
more bigger than a spear, like a stake
Mm.
in the ground,
Like you're putting out a cyclops eye.
like
That kind of
bigger. Right, you're gonna need probably like
A
foot
sharpened
across,
log.
pretty much. But a good, I'd say 4 or 5 feet long.
Yeah.
Right.
Prop it up a little bit so
Yep.
that it's not flush with the ground, and then
Exactly.
beat the side of it so it makes a nice loud noise. Wait for a bolter. Sit on top of the stick
And then
and
go, why
prop
the
it
hell am I sitting on the stick? And then run.
so that you can be standing at the back of the stick and it hits the spear and comes to a stop right before you, and you put your foot on its snout and say, "I conquered this creature."
And then it's in its death thralls. It grabs you and
Oh well, that would be
crushes your everything. And then you're like, my body is broken, my child.
Why did I do this?
Yeah. My legs are broken.
Maybe not the best idea.
No. I can't wait to have a stuffed SLIDEROCK bolter in my house.
You would need a big house.
It's my hunting lodge.
I wonder how their eating is.
Are you ready for my cryptid hunting lodge?
Mm.
You gotta have a stuffed hide behind. Gotta have the stuffed SLIDEROCK bolter. It's gonna be great.
I imagine the bolter is probably a ceiling piece. You've got it hanging
That's
from end
horrifying.
to end.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
Or the skeleton of one.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Take the jaws and hang them behind your grand throne of cryptid hunting.
Oh yeah, over the fireplace,
Yeah.
the mantle.
Because
My smoking room.
as far as fearsome critters go, I'm pretty sure that SLIDEROCK bolter are the biggest.
I think you're right. There might be some.
There's mention of mosquitoes that are wide enough in the leg span to straddle a creek.
Yeah, but a creek
But
is...
that's width, not necessarily weight. They're not as massive.
Yeah, and if you think a creek, right, like any creek could be... It doesn't necessarily have to be big.
Yeah, 3,
Right.
5 feet wide, maybe smaller.
Yeah.
My creek growing up was maybe 5 feet wide.
We're going to have to talk about those someday, because like, it just reminds me of... there was this horror movie that was on TV one time. I can't get it because it's like $70, $80 on eBay.
Yikes.
It's called Skeeters. And
Yeah, skeeters.
It's about giant mosquitoes, and that's all that reminds me of.
Basically, that one part of the original The Good Jumanji.
Did you see it?
Skeeters?
Did you see Skeeters?
It was either skeeters or bees.
Well, there's at the very end, a guy goes nuts and pulls a chainsaw out and starts cutting up things right before the whole thing explodes with C4.
Hell yeah.
It's great. But yeah. So back to SLIDEROCK. I don't think we have a whole lot left to
They're
talk
not
about.
too difficult to hunt. Just know it's all about knowing your territory.
So in conclusion, SLIDEROCK bolter idea, right, is that it's a large salamander, and by large I mean very large salamander.
Crocodile or larger.
Crocodile or larger.
And we're talking salty.
Upwards of, let's say, 1,500 pounds to a ton.
Yeah. Yeah.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah.
It is a almost quasi semi-aquatic.
Yeah.
Where in its younger days, where it goes to spawn, it goes to mate in a lake area environment somewhere near that, where they either breed amongst other ones, or B, reproduce hermaphroditically.
Yeah.
Or asexually?
It is asexual reproduction.
Yeah, asexual reproduction.
No, oh wait. I think hermaphrodites might be the ones with male and female.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Shoot. So yeah, asexual reproduction.
Asexual.
It's a brain fart on my part.
But so that way, as they get into an older age, they will go after larger predators, or not predators, larger prey.
I mean, prey predators.
Anything.
I
that
can't
really
think of
gets in its
anything
way.
hunting this thing.
No.
I know a hide behind's not going to mess with one.
But it will take out from the water. It will slide down and take out something like a deer or larger, depending on if it's in its line of sight. It uses hearing to hunt, going off of noises that they make, and it's probably pretty capable of deciding whether it is or isn't something that's in its ballpark.
It's got to sound delicious.
It does have to sound delicious, like Britney Spears. To a high, not to me, but to the SLIDEROCK bolter.
Oh, I wonder if
tourists.
she breaches containment every year.
Mariah Carey.
I wonder if she sounds delicious to a bolter.
I'm sure. I mean, she probably sounds like a tourist.
Yeah.
But as it grows larger, it will climb up higher and higher because it needs more room to slide, to go faster, and to hit things. And that means they can hunt larger things like elk, moose, if they're in the area, or things of that nature. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to only be in Colorado, but it's
got to be mountainous areas,
valleys
near glacial lakes.
And
I think, or not necessarily glacial, but
just
high
lakes.
mountain lakes.
Valleys and lakes are kind of the main thing.
Yeah.
It
needs a slope and it needs a spawning pool.
Yeah, it produces a mucus from repurposed venom glands that it fills its mouth with and then uses that to slide down.
Oh, it doesn't fill its mouth. It's just kind of
well,
like a ketchup.
Yeah, except imagine how much it would need and how big it'd have to go. It needs to have an internal reservoir a little bit. It can't just produce as fast as it goes down.
Okay, you're right.
Right. So, like, as if you've ever tried to just, suck spit in your mouth, which is kind of gross. But it's a little harder to do so. So, and then it'll use that to go down, grab something, and then slide into water or wherever it is, moist area, and digest that food in that area.
A little hidey hole
where it is more vulnerable, I'd say.
Yeah.
But then once that's digested, it'll go climb back up and wait for bigger prey. And because it's a salamander, it has its growth is just kind of indeterminate. So,
and probably biologically immortal, as with a lot of big reptiles and amphibians.
Yeah.
Just
so
keep going.
You get tales of really big ones that are, the ones that have taken out big people, and they might be named or something, or get blown up by cool forest rangers and stuff like that.
I want to see Paul Bunyan surf a SLIDEROCK bolter.
One on each foot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like snowshoes.
He uses SLIDEROCK bolters as slippers.
He absolutely would. Knowing Paul Bunyan.
Paul Bunyan, the American kaiju. God bless.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, on that note, I think we are done with the SLIDEROCK bolter. I think that turned out pretty good.
Yeah. Check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Rumble.
Pod. Well, I need to post on Rumble.
You need to do that.
I haven't touched that in a while.
Oh boy.
Apple. Anywhere Google. Where podcasts are, we're in all the podcast sites. Yep. We have a TikTok page.
We have social media. We have a new social media manager.
We have 2 now. It's crazy.
Yeah. They're multiplying.
Yeah. Now if
this is getting out of hand. Now there's 2 of them.
But once they actually start putting stuff up, that'll be great.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from that, I don't think we have any news or anything like that.
This is clear and concise.
It's been great.
This is an efficient one.
Yeah, it's way better than last time.
Ready for everything to go off the rails in the next episode? Because no one knows what the chupacabra is.
See, but that makes it easier for us because we don't have to put it under the category of human.
Fair.
Right? That's what makes it difficult.
Yeah.
But on that note, I don't think we have any news. Yeah. This has been Snicker Snack.
Stay Snicker Snacking.
No, we're not doing that.
Stay Snicker Snacking.
This has been Cal.
He's been Caleb.
Yeah, and this has been Snicker Snack. All right. Yeah, that's
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. Go. Get out of here. Go pet your dog.
Go pet your dog.